Great. Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Saucedo. The claim that I'm responding to today is that traditional zoos fail to benefit wild animals. I put in secondary claims included first, that enclosing the animals in habitats that don't suit their lifestyle causes suffering. Second, that zoo education programs are ineffective. Third, that zoo breeding is ineffective in bolstering existing wildlife populations. And I'm going to try to tackle each of these claims. So for the first claim, that enclosing animals in zoos causes suffering mentally and physically for them, I'm not the first to respond to this argument, but I think it warrants repeating that the evidence used was not actually sufficient. So the advocate references the disorder zoochosis when talking about the mental suffering that animals go through when being enclosed. To explain, but this is not an official term. I tried to look this up myself and I couldn't find it except on the site that she listed. And then that site, or the quote actually wrongly references the LA Zoo. And later in this same claim, it's quoted that tigers and lions have around 18,000 times less space in zoos than they would in the wild. So this same source, sorry about that. Okay, so the actual site is not lazoo.org, which is the site of the LA Zoo. It's lazoohouse.weebly.com. So for the second claim regarding the physical stress that animals are put under as a result of being in zoos, it's stated that 40% of lion cubs die before 1 month of age in the wild, and only 30% of cubs are thought to die before they are 6 months old. And again, this source is not actually from the LA Zoo. So going into the second claim that zoo education programs are ineffective, my response to this is that zoo education programs are actually effective and they offer a variety of resources to the public. Firstly, one of the supporting claims is that zoos are supposedly supposed to be helping wildlife by educating people and creating awareness about wildlife conservation and attracting possible donors. This is true. In the other supporting claims, there was a study referenced, just a study of U.S. zoos, that there is no compelling evidence promoting attitude change, education, or interest in conservation in visitors, but there are actually programs in place to provide to educate the public on conservation and so forth. So the Association of Zoos and Aquariums stated on their website that accreditation standards and board-approved policies have been established to ensure this objective is achieved and often involve to meet increasingly rigorous criteria. In the LA Zoo website, it shows that children's classes, school and group programs, zoo overnight programs, zoo camps, and adult education programs, as well as outreach programs are offered to the public. There was one of her supporting claims was that the average visitor spends 30 seconds to 2 minutes at each enclosure, and that's kind of why these programs are offered, because people aren't really at zoos for long periods of time or at certain enclosures for long periods of time. So that's why these kinds of resources are available, such as online resources too. For instance, this is Smithsonian National Zoological Park offers classes and camps, undergraduate, graduate, and professional opportunities, training, and volunteer opportunities for those interested in learning more about zoos and animals and so forth. So going into the third claim, that zoo breeding is ineffective in bolstering existing wildlife populations. My response is that zoo breeding has been successful in some cases, and methods behind this are improving. So the Association of Zoos and Aquariums has a species survival program plan in place, and I'm going to quote their site again. It says that it aims to manage the breeding of specific endangered species in order to help maintain healthy and self-sustaining populations that are both genetically diverse and demographically stable. In the case of bongos, this ended up being successful. For instance, it states that many of these captive bred bongos have subsequently been released into the wild and have helped bolster dwindling population numbers accordingly. Now in some cases it hasn't been successful. For instance, in lowland gorillas, giant pandas and snow leopards. But even the wildlife biologists that are involved with these programs mentioned that it is a work in progress, but it's a step towards ensuring that animals will eventually be able to, or that these kind of breeding methods are effective in the future, and it's something that can be worked on. So that concludes my argument. Thank you all.
All right, well, I think you start off pretty well identifying the main claim and labeling the secondary issues. You signpost your first point pretty clearly. There's a challenge to the evidence that's presented basically on the issue of zoochosis, and that's about the last time that we get a specific challenge to a piece of evidence that's being presented. And that challenge, I'm not sure that it gets you all that much, except that it suggests that people who are evaluating the life of, or the conditions in which the animals in the zoos are living, appear to be not scientists per se, but maybe advocates in some way. I think there might be a good argument to be made about that particular issue. There's an argument about whether or not the site that is the advocate got evidence from is in fact related to the LA Zoo or another organization. Did we hear this speech the other night too? Did we have a second speech on this?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted, because I said I heard some of this refutation stuff before, right? Okay, so this is like the Trump thing. We're getting double dipped on this. Okay. The data about the lions and 40% die in the wild, what does that get you? How does that attack the zoo, or how does it support the zoo? There's not really much explanation of that. It's just as a review of a piece of statistical data. No inference is being drawn from that. I thought that you had a better argument on the second point when you make the suggestion that there are educational programs there is outreach. You kind of give an explanation about how that outreach has to work. I think you ought to challenge the argument about how long people are looking at the material there a little bit more directly. Does that mean that they are disinterested, or that they're not finding out information otherwise? Or the fact that they don't read something, does that necessarily mean they don't learn anything from having seen the animals? I think that that's the inference that the advocates is presenting, and I think there's a good challenge to be made there, and your argument simply seems to be, well, there are other ways they can get information, which is not a bad response. It might also be helpful, for instance, if you could show that all these programs that are available, the classes, the volunteer outreach things, the advanced graduate classes, that sort of thing, well, how many people utilize these things in the zoos? That, I think, would go a long way toward making your argument a heck of a lot more persuasive. And then on the third point on breeding issues, you've got one example that you can successfully point to. Then you've got three examples that you say, well, it didn't work in these particular situations, but it could work, and we're still working on that sort of thing. So it's a mixed piece of information for your side in the argument.